what we're seeing now in government policy is a real push towards maximising value and encouraging, if you like, the best-in-class projects to come through. Now, I think what that means is, unfortunately, that there are going to be some losers in that development, but there will also be winners. And we've seen the way that government policy has worked, in that there have been some real success stories. So, we've seen the way that offshore wind has developed and has come down in price. It's been a real success story. Equally, the deployment of onshore wind and solar, those are no longer generally subsidised within the energy regulatory framework, but we're seeing an increasing amount of those projects being developed subsidy-free, which obviously is great for bill players and great generally for the UK energy industry. But what we're seeing develop are other financing methods in order to replace some of those subsidies, which is exactly what a subsidy regime should do. It should encourage early development and then should be withdrawn, and then the market gets used to the risks or finds methods of filling the gaps. So, for example, over the last 10 or 12 years, we've seen the development of what are called corporate PPAs, which are long-term energy purchasing arrangements between energy users and generators, which are essentially a mechanism to fix long-term and over a much longer period than energy suppliers are typically willing to do, to fix the wholesale price element of energy. And it's those revenue streams from typically large corporates or often public sector organisations which are underpinning the financing case for those projects, thus removing need for subsidy.
I think we are seeing a real evolution in public sector approach to net zero. They've always been a major energy user, but now they are really thinking about actually, where does my energy supply come from? Is it green? What can I do proactively to really bring about additional capacity on the grid? So we're seeing some really interesting examples of different approaches with a sort of theme across all of them, really, of localism. So we're seeing some local authorities sort of buy and build their own renewable energy generation. So that might be wind turbines or a solar farm. We're also helping local authorities really think about contracting structures and how they can use them to have a direct relationship with a renewable energy generator, even if they are not the renewable energy generator themselves. So you can put in place contractual mechanisms where you as a local authority are providing a fixed price, or at least a certain price over the long term, which really underpins the financial model for that particular project and really allows that project to go forward and bring additional capacity to the grid. We're also seeing local authorities take a look at their heat supply. District heating is coming forward in a lot of the cities and will continue to do so. I think that's a real area of focus as well for local authorities.
Well, the big thing was changing the limit in the Climate Change Act from 80% to 100%. That's the net zero. And that really was a fundamental change, because that forced every sector to look at it, rather than being able to say, well, we're doing our bit and the rest can get picked up by a different sector. And that drives that collaboration that you have to do. In terms of wider legislation, there's lots of strategy papers, and we know the direction of travel, but there actually isn't really the legislation or the regulatory frameworks to drive it going forward. And you really do need that, and industry really does need to know the long timelines, because you can then work towards those.